Welcome to the Sandersonian Institute of Cosmere Studies, where there's always another secret.
Welcome back, Sixers, to another episode of the Sandersonian Institute of Cosmere Studies. This is episode 155. Today is February 13th, 2024. I am Bill, and I am joined, as always, by my Proto-Valentinian co-hosts, Amy and Jordan. Welcome.
I swear the words are getting longer as the seasons go on.
I guess anti-Valentinian would probably be better, but oh well.
I'm not anti-Valentinian.
Ante, not anti. A-N-T-E.
Well, I am. I'm
Meaning
tired of all these
proceeding.
people who are pro-relationship. I'm going anti.
Oh, boy.
Oh, what do we start? Okay.
No one stands up for it.
Before we get started, we want to remind our listeners that the Sandersonian Institute of Cosmere Studies is not a spoiler-free podcast. That means if there is something in the Cosmere that you haven't read and you're worried about hearing spoilers, you might want to go read those first, then come back and join the discussion. Tonight, we are starting to get ready for the release of Stormlight Book 5, Wind and Truth, by discussing another reread of The Way of Kings. We'll be rereading each of the books in the Stormlight Archive this year as we get closer and closer to December, and this time, all spoilers are fair game. Got it?
Yes.
All spoilers are fair game. For those of you who listen to the podcast recordings or watch the videos on YouTube, we do want to remind you it's possible for listeners to interact with us live via chat as we record each episode at www.youtube.com/Cosmere Studies. We record episodes every other Monday night, starting at 7:30 p.m. Pacific Time, 10:30 p.m. Eastern, so please join us and take an active part in the discussion. The show is made possible by the support of our listeners and patrons. It will, of course, continue to be free, but if you want to help us out, head over to patreon.com/Cosmere Studies. Even pledging $1 or $2 per episode really helps us out as we work to improve the show. Patrons will get immediate access to our Discord channel where you can talk about the show and the Cosmere with other listeners. We got a great community over there. We've got some good discussions. Fun times are had by all. You also get early access to bonus episodes, exclusive access to other bonus content, and other good stuff. This week, we want to thank our newest patron, Eric R. Thank you so much. You're amazing. You're wonderful, and we love you. I said it. We love you.
It's true.
So
I'm no longer anti-Valentinian.
Did
I say it right?
Now you're just anti-Valentinian?
Yeah.
Okay. Guys, I'm so tired. I just got back from traveling across the country. My plane landed at midnight. I got home at 1:30. I got to bed about 2:30. I had to wake up at 6:15 for physical therapy at 6:40. So
It's been a long day. Yeah.
It's been a very long day.
Look at how hard he's working for you people. If you haven't subbed yet, how have you not? He's trying so hard for you.
For you specifically.
Indeed.
You
just
individually.
For you. Like everyone else thinks it's about them. No, it's about you.
You know what they can do to make it up to me, Jordan? They could help us get to 3,000 hours. How are we doing on that?
Oh, that's a great question. And I just realized I accidentally closed that window. Now that you mention
Jordan,
it,
you're doing great.
I'm doing great. It's okay. You're
It's a
really
Tuesday.
tired. That's affecting
I'm rooting
me
for
somehow.
you.
Somehow that affects me.
Secondhand fatigue?
Yes, that's what it is.
Is there an institute that studies this and not the Sandersonian Institute? I know.
Let's see. We are at well, first of all, I just want to point out we got another boost in membership. We're at 925 now.
Awesome.
So that was good.
Y'all are
and
amazing.
now- I know, right? And we are at look at that. 2,828 watch hours. So 28.
That's close.
That is super.
We are at
that's way close.
94%.
Bing.
Bing indeed.
And in fact, to cross the streams, Bing again. You may not remember me, but I sure as heck fire remember you. Oh man, fun times. Okay, so folks, thank you so much for the watching that y'all are doing. We love having you come in and watch and leave comments and just checking out the stream. We appreciate y'all so much. And hopefully we can get to 3,000 really soon. That we're making some progress. I like that. All right. Well, let's move into the
Cosmere Thing of the Week.
So, Jordan, what do we have for the Cosmere Thing of the Week this week?
We have, as you put it, Wit and Design going through their Loki phase.
Loki in the Avengers, particularly.
Yes. This is done by user SlyDes123 over on Reddit. I'm sure they posted it somewhere else, but Reddit's where I found it. And I don't know, Wit in a business suit amused me way too much to not do this.
It's very sleek. It's good. It almost feels like they kind of used a picture of Tom Hiddleston as like a guide, kind of, and then
it's like Tom Hiddleston and a little bit of Christopher Walken.
Oh, I could see that.
Man, I now want to see season 3 of Loki that has Christopher Walken as a Loki variant.
I don't think we're getting a season 3 though.
I don't think we're getting much of season of anything recently. Anyway,
but yeah, I love just the ideas that people get, because it's Wit and Design, but we've got a very modern look for Wit.
Sort of like that picture we had maybe like a year ago, where it was the
Adolin and
Adolin, Kaladin, and Shalon,
and they went to Goncho's.
And they got
Boba Tea at Goncho's.
Boba Tea, yeah,
that's what it was.
Yeah.
Sorry, ramen. I was thinking of a different.
That's okay.
Book.
They got good food. It's all good.
I love modern interpretations of fantasy characters. There's just something that's fun about it. So,
yeah, I like people doing variants of characters.
Mm-hmm.
Add some nice flavor, and you can kind of extrapolate things about their personalities and stuff by how they dressed them and everything else. So
exactly.
Cool. All right. Well, let's move on into Sanderson news. And guess what? We're current because it came out today. Because we're recording this as we've mentioned on Tuesday rather than Monday, which means that the Sanderson Weekly Update came out this morning.
Yay!
Look at what Bill is sacrificing for you people to get current information. He's got no sleep, but you got current information.
To be fair, they could get current information just by watching Brandon's videos themselves.
We're the only source.
No.
Don't out it. They don't know Brandon's on YouTube.
So Stormlight 5, the revision for version 3.0 is at 41%. Again, they're trying to get this complete by the last day of March and hopefully having 4.0 done the last day of May. And then Brandon gets to start working on whatever else he's going to be working on. He's got some stuff in the works. So
I don't think he has that many projects. Should be easy to narrow down.
No.
I think it's Elantris and Mistborn that he's going to be
I think his next one is White Sand, actually.
Oh, that's right.
He's talked about a prose version of White Sand. Hopefully. Now that's not promised, but he hinted that that's something that he'd like to have ready for Dragonsteel 2025. Again, that's not promised. That's a hope.
Yeah.
Or that's a maybe.
Yes.
So, Skyward Flight's revision. I've noticed he's been referring to it as Skyward Flight instead of Skyward Legacy now. But he said that current revision that he has is at 20%. And good news, everybody. All of the leather-bound books are in stock on the Dragonsteel store. This is a glorious day. Now, who knows how long that will be? So if you're trying to figure out when to get your leather-bound books, now is the time.
Don't bankrupt yourself, though. Don't do that.
No, don't
Unless
do
you're
that.
donating to us.
No,
No.
even then, don't do that.
Not even then. No,
Be
don't do that.
fiscally responsible.
Don't kill the golden goose, Jordan.
But how we get the eggs?
Slow and steady.
For those people who are in the Midwest, the Chicago area, Brandon and team are going to C2E2. I don't know what that stands for, but in Chicago on April 26th and 27th, they're taking the whole booth team. So they're going to have that fancy booth that they that they debuted at Dragonsteel last year. That's going with them to the to C2E2. And every time I say that, I want to I expect to hear like a. But
Oh, so C2E2 is
Robot
Chicago
sounds.
Comic and Entertainment Expo.
Okay, so two.
So
C's
there's
and
2 C's and 2 E's. Okay, I didn't know that.
which I figured was going to be the case.
Yeah. Okay.
And then the other thing that was interesting. Did y'all watch this video?
I didn't watch it yet because I was scrambling to listen and read Way of Kings.
So Brandon went into why like he was talking about the reasons that shipping overseas is so expensive. Because a lot of crowdfunding events, the shipping isn't quite as expensive as they are. And it's because he's printing the books in the United States. They want to do some quality control checks. There's some other, they have a few reasons that they want to print it in the US. Making sure that the facilities are, the working conditions are good, all that kind of stuff. And shipping out of, if things have been printed in China, shipping is much cheaper, but he wants to do it here so that they can go and inspect the facility and make sure everything's going well, quality control, get there in time. And he was actually even asking people for suggestions on ways that they can get the shipping costs down if anybody knows of anything, but they've kind of, reached the end of their capabilities to do that. It was really cool though, because I went through and I read a lot of the comments, and there were several people chiming in just saying, thank you for, keeping people in mind, being transparent about this, letting us know why the shipping prices are so high based on what you've said. There were a lot of people who were very, very supportive and just saying, I like the way you're doing it, and I would rather pay a little bit extra to support you doing it this way. So,
yeah, I love their transparency is second to none.
Mm-hmm.
They're really good about that, yeah.
But yeah, they're currently working on the cheapest option that they know of. There were people who were chiming in with suggestions, so who knows what it's going to be moving forward. But I just think that's cool, and I like him getting out ahead of the Words of Radiance crowdfund.
Yeah, the back
because there's going to be a lot of questions about that.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's a lot of they're printing the books, but then we know that there's going to be plushies and other goodies that come along with the Kickstarter, and I'm going to be broke again after this. But yeah. So, and if any of y'all who are listening to us have a solution, reach out to Brandon's team at Dragonsteel Books and let them know.
Because I'm sure they'd like that.
If you have a contact who could make it better.
You never know.
Yep.
All right, so let's move on then into the main discussion of The Way of Kings. It's been a while since we talked about this book.
It's been, when was it? Did we look?
This was like
long
we did
time
this in the
ago
first
in a
year
galaxy
that we
far, far away.
No, Jordan. No,
Oh, sorry, is that a different thing?
We're going to get copyright strike. No.
Oh goodness, 2018.
Yeah, it's been some time.
My goodness.
What day? Do we have the date listed?
It was in 4 different parts. It started
which months?
August is 8th. So
yeah,
8/6/2018.
That's what I was thinking.
2018. Yeah, so it's August.
Dang, that predates Smash Ultimate.
Yeah.
It predates a lot of things.
Yeah.
Wow. It was a different world back then. But
Was Oathbringer out?
Oathbringer was out. That was the last thing that had came out.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we just didn't talk about it yet.
That had come out.
Yeah.
I just said had came out, and now I feel like a redneck. I've been in Alabama. So.
Yeah, I was about to say you just got back
rubbing
home,
off on you.
But yeah, it's okay. So first off, let's just talk about the prelude, because we've got a lot more context now for what's going on here with Kalik meeting with Jezrien and finding out that Talon was the only one who was killed, and so he was left behind. We've got some more context for what's going on here, because the first time you read this book, this is how you're introduced to Roshar.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's just like, thousands of years later.
Mm-hmm.
Especially because now we've seen, both Jezrien and Kalik again in the modern day, because Jezrien was the drunkard who,
he wasn't doing
was
well.
walking around, have you seen me? Have you seen me?
Mm-hmm. He was in the
And
beggar's feast.
Kalik is the judge and the sort of...
Well, and the guy who started the Sons of Honor.
The guy who, the guy who refuses to make a decision, the guy who started the Sons of Honor, he's trying to get off of Roshar. And it's just a different perspective on these characters.
Yeah.
I mean, I look back and I'm not the same person I was 10 years ago. They've had a lot of iterations to go through on this. Mm-hmm. So they've become very, very different people.
Plus they have their whole magic curse sort of thing going on.
Madness, yeah.
Yeah.
Which isn't fun.
No.
It was interesting seeing Ash or Shalash or whatever her name is. Seeing her interlude, the interlude that she's in, and having so much more context for her too.
Oh yes.
I remember the first time being like, what? Why is she destroying artwork? And that's just weird. And this is random.
Now we've met her in person.
Mm-hmm. So there's just a lot more context for everything. And there were it was interesting reading all the stuff with Moash, because I got this gut I want to punch him off the bat, and then I was like, oh, but he's doing good things after a while, and but I still don't like you because you're just no. I know what you do later.
Does he do something that we don't like later?
Oh,
well, and then you look at Sigzil, because Sigzil is so different. Sigzil was one of the grumpy ones who was pushing back, and then later after he, after things get better, after the events of this book happen, he becomes a much more peaceful and just studious, because he seemed sort of like the playground bully style of mentality, because that's what being a bridgeman had done to him. He's like, get out of here, leave me alone. What do you want?
Yeah, if you act rough enough, they'll leave you alone.
Right, and now he's just sort of, I get to be a scholar again. And then, of course, we see him in the future in a completely different context.
Oh yeah, and you're like, these are two very different men, and it's the same guy. Oh man. I like the comment.
Libralita in chat says, my favorite part was when Kaladin threw him over his shoulder and punched him in the gut. He knew. So.
Not wrong.
And it's like, and all of the people on Reddit cheered because
he could stand to get punched in the gut a little more.
Yeah. It's just really interesting looking at things in a different context. Actually, speaking of looking at things in a different context, let's go to the prologue. Because we've seen this scene now from 5 different angles.
Yeah,
so with the full context.
The murder. Okay.
We've seen it from Szeth's perspective. We've seen it from Yasna's perspective, from Navani's perspective, from Eshonai's perspective, and Gavilar's. Now, we never saw it from Dalinar's because he's drunk in the corner.
What? Oh, it was.
We technically haven't seen it from Gavilar's yet.
Right, we've seen it from Gavilar's in the future.
I guess I'm remembering that Dalinar has flashbacks that happen right around it, and that's what I'm thinking of. Is that?
Yeah, okay. But prologue-wise, we've seen the full prologue from multiple. Yeah, and again, we've seen the different heralds also represented in different ways I believe all 10 of them were there, if I'm recalling, or the 9.
Because Talonov wasn't there.
Well, so obviously
no.
Collect and Nail. We know Ash is there because she's destroying art. Because we see her work done recently.
Okay, do we want to talk about Gavilar's prologue in?
Yeah,
like
we said
because this is
spoilers.
Like,
it's
okay.
So if you haven't read that, then spoilers.
Right. So we've seen what I suspect is Chanarach being mentioned when they said a herald has died.
Yeah,
I'm like that almost clinched the prediction of who Chanarach is.
Well, we don't know where Batar is, right? Either we don't know.
No,
where
we
she
don't
is.
know Batar or Pylea, but we think we know Pylea through words of Brandon is probably at Carbranth.
And she's in the Polynesium at some point.
Oh, was she the lady who was walking in the dark?
She's the ardent who's wandering around. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
because I did read that and
which
like,
makes
wait,
people
I feel like
wonder because she's the herald of knowledge, and since people's they go the opposite with their madness.
And again, the Polynesium is named after her.
Yeah, they think she might be destroying stuff in the
that was what it was like. If she's going
hoarding knowledge instead of sharing it,
could be.
But
we don't see her.
We've seen several representations of heralds. Of course, we saw Kalek and Nail.
And Nail, yeah.
There are some people who suspect that the assassin that Esh and I was talking, is one of the heralds. I can't remember which.
Was it Batar?
One.
Because it was a
possibly
lady.
Batar.
Because that's the one we haven't really seen.
Or Vema Vala.
Oh goodness.
Vama.
Some people think it might be her because she's supposed to be one of healing.
Well, and Batar is here. Batar is the edge dancers.
The healing. Okay.
Batar is the edge dancers herald.
Gotcha.
Hold on, I'm gonna look up the names because we're forgetting.
But yeah. Anyway, but no, it's
Videl. Is it Videl?
Yes, Videl.
Yeah.
But this time I'm much more sympathetic towards Zeth than I was in the past.
Oh, much more.
Oh my goodness, yes.
Well, because we see the journey that he comes from, and again, if you've listened to or paid attention to future releases, we've seen a scene or two, even from Book 5, which are Zeth's flashbacks,
and it's so sad.
And you see the journey that he's taken.
I don't think I, in the previous reads, really appreciated the slow descent into madness that Brandon did. Like this time, I think I'm just paying closer attention this time to it and seeing him like as he starts to blame the people he's killing for not being stronger, not killing him.
It's like, why couldn't you just beat me? Because I don't want to do this.
Or why did you have to summon so many people to this dinner as a distraction?
Oh yeah, that one.
Now,
it was
now look at what I have to do.
The Veden King, and it was like, look what you did. You did this during a feast.
Well, and part of that is his own self-preservation responses. Because he doesn't want to do these things, but he has to do them. And again, that's why in Book 2, when he's going off against Kaladin, I am truthless, and it's just like, no, every single one of those killings is on your hands.
Yeah, well, and he even has that at the very end of the book. He has that moment where he's in the not hospital, and he has the thought. He's like, I could end this right here. I could do it.
I could do it, but I can't.
He's like,
he's got it.
Move back, and then he just goes back, and it's like, no, I have an oath stone. It's like, then it's your choice, man.
And I realized this time around that there's also the story from Wit where he's talking about the island and the people who
you're talking about the Wandersail.
Yeah, the Wandersail. Like I'd forgotten we talked about it recently, but there's like the island where they kill everybody and they think it's the Emperor telling them to do it.
But the Emperor's been dead.
But then they find out that no, it's been them. And it's kind of that same parallel thing with Zeth when he finds out that no, I was never truthless. I was right the whole time.
But it's not just I was right the whole time. It's I've been doing this and I didn't have to.
Yep. I was right. I did this the whole time and I didn't have to. And now it's on me. And it's, ooh. And then
But
things happen
the
and
other
for them more too.
well, the other thing is, the scene where Zeth is fighting Gavilar and defeats him, and the conversation that Gavilar has, we think with Zeth, and we remember from the chapter that's coming out, the book 5 prologue, he's not talking to Zeth. He's talking to the Stormfather.
That's true. I'd forgotten that. I did like that. I had totally missed the Thydakar reference, though. That there's the reference to the Thydakar, telling me it's too late.
Well, Thydakar and what's his name? Kalak.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Rastaris is his
Rastaris. The other thing that you don't pick up the first time you read it is him, because the message he was given is tell my brother to he must find the most important words a man can say. But rather than telling him, he writes it in Gavilar's blood in his own hand. Which that right there, that's a theological conundrum.
Yeah.
Because suddenly people are just like, whoa. And it's funny because it's a double thing, because everybody's shocked that he can write when technically he really can't. But technically he really can. Because Gavilar is the kind of man who would break with that tradition to have forbidden knowledge. And
yeah. Well, I mean, the thing that Dalinar says is he's starting to learn to read, and he starts to understand all the subscript that was being written by the women.
Script, that's under the undertext.
Yeah, the undertext, that's what it was. And he says to himself, and it's like, I thought, they let us have the swords and we let them have the words, and I wonder which one of us, got the more powerful. But that gets into the whole weirdness of what can you do with one hand versus two? It's like, I mean, it's a way to divide this up.
So it's interesting. Jordan, you mentioned this to me once, and it was something I thought as well. After reading through books, 2, 3, and 4, the stakes in this book seem so small.
Yeah.
Comparatively.
Yeah.
Just because they're fighting a needless war for trinkets, essentially, for gems, for jewels. They claim it's revenge, but they're
vengeance
just
pact.
Well,
and even like their quarrels, like Sadeas versus Dalinar seems so small potatoes.
It's small and petty.
Yeah. Which, I mean, that's part of why Adolin ends up murdering him, is he realizes he's going to drag everything out when that's not important. And
right.
So he also just needs to die. So, that's
he makes the choice that he knows his father will not.
But it's just interesting how early in the game this ends up being, because when this is the only book out, you're just like, okay, this is the story.
Epic.
It's like, no, this is the setup. Because we're seeing all of the little hints and lead ups to things that, by book 2 and book 3 and book 4 have become integral parts of the story. But like, for example, Shallan, when she's drawing the pictures and she's seeing what are these creatures with lines for faces, and what's going on, and it's just like, oh, that's Pattern and his buddies.
It's some cryptics. Yeah.
But it's obvious. Freaky at the time.
Oh yeah, like it's way more horror story. Like I think I listened to part of that section, and the way that it feels so much more scary, and like especially when she's doing all those frantic drawings and they're coming closer and closer and closer and closer, and you're like, oh my goodness, the anticipation, even though I know exactly what's going to happen, but it still affects you that way.
It's eerie. But and then like with Syl, Syl is such an integral part, and she starts off just as this Windsprin or the Lopen. He's just this punk who says, you get to only pick one guy. I don't know what it's for, but I want to be the guy.
I want it. Yeah.
And I love seeing it's really, really cool, because at this point, it almost feels like I'm reading a prequel to something that I'm deeply involved in, but it doesn't suffer from all of the prequel issues. You know, where a lot of prequels sometimes feel like it's a, hey, remember that thing you like? Here it is. This is just a, hey, here's a thing. Maybe you'll like it.
It was, and it was nice that I caught so many more little hints and different and foreshadowing. Because I mean, you have mentions of Elokar saying like, "Oh, there's creatures in the room and they're gonna get me." And like the first time I was like, "Oh, that's really weird." And now I know exactly what it is. And it's like, "Oh, you poor terrible little man."
It's going through the exact same thing as Shallan is.
But he can't draw, I'm assuming, and so it doesn't. Not that anybody else around him would know.
With Shallan, we're seeing it through Shallan's eyes, and with Elokar, we're seeing it through Dalinar's eyes.
So it comes off as so petty and like, why are you? What is your thing?
Well, it's just this paranoid, sniveling little creature, as opposed to Shallan, who's just like, okay, this is terrifying.
This is awful.
But with Elokar, it makes it look like he's just paranoid. When he's seeing these things,
and it would be freaky. Like there have been times I've seen something out of the corner of my eye, and it's usually just like some movement or something, and it's not anything at all. But if it's the right mood, the right time of day, it can be really scary. And if that's happening consistently, I can only imagine.
Yeah. But like, well, not to mention, you know, they're worried that he's paranoid because his father was assassinated and they're putting a lot of pressure on him. All of those things are still true.
Yeah.
And then this is just another bit of evidence in that direction.
Well, and then the other thing is, even though, you know, I've reread it, Dalinar's visions that he's having, once you know that he's not actually talking back and forth.
It's so hard. You're like, oh. And it's weird because he's talking to some of the people. He's talking to the common people in the visions, and they're interacting with him, so I can understand why he is extra confused with the fact that only part of it is talking to him.
Stuff.
It's not actually. Yeah, it's a really big gut punch. Even though I knew it was coming, I'm like, oh, poor Dalinar.
Another thing that, in now knowing what we know now, when Kaladin's left out to the storm and he has that moment where he's just nowhere, and you know, he just sees the fate. You're just like, what is going on? And you don't understand at that point, but you do later. It's like, oh, he's in the place between moments, the whatever this thing that the Stormfather can do, and it's not going to be the only time that him going there is going to save his life.
Right. Yeah, I mean that's a huge plot point in book 4.
Yeah, we don't know exactly why the Stormfather pulled him in then. Was it probably just for Syl's sake?
It was probably for Syl's sake. Well, I mean, because Syl is basically communicating with him, you know, saying you cannot take him. That's still, in my opinion, one of the most powerful images. I would love just an artist rendition of that scene.
There are some
from Kaladin's perspective, where you just see this tiny little figure, hands up to the wind, just being buffeted. I just love that imagery.
I have seen, I can't remember who it was, but I have seen somebody do that image, and it's really good.
Her fighting the Death Spren, I think, is where she's got like a sword and she's like fighting them off.
That was rough, but so cute at the same time. I'm like, you go, Syl, you get them. Just
there's another moment. There's another moment that I didn't realize it. Like, it's kind of a foreshadowing for a book late for the next book. Is when Dalinar is fighting the Chasm Fiend. He does the last clap.
Yep.
He catches the Chasm
Fiend.
Yes. And then yells at Adolin, cut the other leg.
And it's just sort of but it's just like, this is his move. Like, this is his signature move, and he has utilized it very well.
Doesn't do it often, but when he does it, it matters. Yeah.
Oh gosh. So rereading it, what are some other things that just stood out to you with the context of the rest of the Stormlight Archive and even the rest of the Cosmere? Like, we mentioned Thydakar
There's a lot of things.
For example.
I had meant to write notes and I forgot to, and now I'm kicking myself for not writing myself notes about
one thing that
all the
stands
things.
out to me this read as compared to others. I don't know why, but Capsule, it never occurred to me, even though it's stated pretty plainly later on, it didn't occur to me that he wasn't an Ardent. Like in my head, he was always like, oh, he was a Ghostblood who had infiltrated the Ardentia. And because I had assumed it, I didn't read like closely where Yesna was like, yeah, none of the other Ardents knew him, even though he talks about them like he knows them. And it's like, oh, right.
Yeah, I'd
The other thing
forgotten that too.
I forget. Okay, this is a weird note, and it's not that important. It just struck me as odd. There are no words of Brandon on Capsule. There's not one. But there is a lot of words of
At least
Brandon by around someone who uses the name Capsule who asks Brandon a lot of questions. And so I sifted through a lot until I realized none of them are about the character. They're this person who used the name. And I'm like, curse you Capsule.
The other thing is we talk about the Ghostbloods. When this came out, Ghostbloods was just a creepy name.
Yeah.
We now know that the Ghostbloods were founded by Kelsier on Scadrial. And this is a renegade branch of them on a different world that has kind of gone, off the reservation.
Yeah. At least enough to where Twin Souls like them not being in contact with us is a problem. And anyone, what's the line from like anyone too extreme for Ra's al Ghul is no one to be trifled with. Like anyone too extreme for Kelsier's crew, like you should be worried.
Yeah. But we have Capsule, and then we also have Shallan's father and
Luesh.
the steward, Luesh.
Yeah.
And it's just sort of the Ghostbloods are really in some interesting places. Again, especially if, as I suspect, Chanarach is Shallan's mother.
Yeah. Well, and then the other thing about it that was very interesting to me, when Capsule starts talking about religion, he was talking about his theory that like the Voidbringers have to be real, but like they offset the goodness of honor. And to which Shallan's like, well, if you have to, like, if every time there's something good, it's offset by something evil, why do anything? Well, that's why you create man, so that, they can do, positive good. And that doesn't sound very honor. That sounds like the problem with harmony.
Is you have to have some, a sword.
Yeah, that you have to have you have to have humans to be able to do positive good because you're stuck in end neutral as a god. And it's knowing he's a Ghostblood and knowing Kelsier's concerns about Sazed. I'm wondering if this is well, the other thing that's interesting, she says he has a Herdazian accent, but she doesn't mention anything about him having like Herdazian, like the fingernails and stuff.
Fingernails.
Like that. And so
are you wondering if he's Scadrian?
Or at least something.
I don't think that he would be Scadrian, because then they would say he looks like a shed.
Yeah, and that's sort of the same thing, but it's just sort of, it's something that you start mixing all these things and it makes me start wondering, like, what's going on? Because that doesn't sound like any other Rosharan philosophy. I don't hear anyone else being like, oh, the reason the Voidbringers exist is because there's so much good in God, he had to offset it. But that does sound like Harmony's issues.
Well, not to mention the fact that, correct me if I'm wrong, the humans, when they came from Ashen, they were with Odium.
From what we know, I think.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Okay.
That's what I remember.
I don't know if they were worshiping Odium, but
he may have just. We don't have.
They
all
are.
the details.
We know they are of Odium because that's part of the thing. Is
I think there are at least some
Odium
who are worshiping him.
Yeah,
worshiping him. I mean, because you have the Thalens who followed the passions.
Yeah, like there's got to be something to it. But we don't know the specifics of it just yet.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, I think that's a good pausing place. So, yeah, let's take a break and we will see you in a moment. And we're back. Oh, gosh, there is so much going on in this book, and we've barely even scratched the surface.
I mean, we did 4 episodes about it last time.
Yes, we did.
So there is.
We could afford to push things out. Brandon wasn't releasing books at quite the schedule he has been.
This breakneck schedule.
Oh man, yeah.
Well, and we may even come back to it. It won't be next week because we have plans that I'm very, very excited for not next week, but next episode. That I'm very excited for our next episode. But we'll tell you about that in a little bit.
A little bit, yeah.
It's called a forward tease.
Indeed. Pay attention. Listen to the end. Oh, but
so you were asking about what little things we were remembering and noticed
things
and stuff
that are popping up.
Just like the scale of it is so different, and it was kind of refreshing in a sense to be able to be like, okay, I'm coming back to the basics of Roshar and reminding myself of all of the politics and all of the setup and all of these different things that I honestly, my brain has kind of gone like and just been like, I can't remember that detail. You're shoved 5 other ones from Rhythm of War and all these other things in there. I can't remember that thing. And so it's like, oh yeah, that was a thing. And just a lot of that going on.
Yeah, it's really interesting to look at it because one of the things that draws people to the Stormlight Archive is the epicness of it, how it becomes so grand. That's why people like the Cosmere too. It's these huge, enormous consequences.
Oh yeah.
And it's really nice to go back to small.
There's
something relatable.
The stakes are so personal because everyone who's a main character in this is going through so much self-conflict. Because you have Kaladin who just wants to give up but can't let himself. You have Shallan who is barely like this is the first time she's been away from her house, and she starts like enjoying kind of the freedom of it and starts to actually enjoy like proper scholarship, but she's conflicted because the woman that she got it from she has to betray. You have Dalinar who thinks he's going insane, but maybe not. You have Adolin who doesn't know what he should do because he thinks his father's going crazy. Even Yesna, you can tell, is under a lot of pressure.
Actually, let's go back to Adolin, because Adolin is really, really interesting in this with the context, because Adolin originally didn't exist. Like, Adolin was a character that Brandon added in after the fact, because a lot of the doubt that Adolin has about whether Dalinar is actually sane and stuff, originally that was Dalinar's internal struggle.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I do remember hearing about that.
And Brandon decided he didn't want that. He wanted him to be more convicted in his belief that this is going on, and have the doubt be external.
Which, I mean, it would be a very different take if Dalinar was the whole time going, am I crazy? Am I crazy? Am I crazy? Compared to, I need to do this thing, but am I crazy? It's a lot more pause and separation in it, and which changes.
Well, like the conversation between Adolin and Dalinar, he says, maybe you're just getting old. And Dalinar says, I have thought about this. I think about this all the time.
This is a worry. Yeah.
I've decided that I just need to move forward as if it's true.
Yeah. And then he puts into place later on that he's like, I'm putting in some official paperwork so that if I really do go off the deep end, you and Renarin can take over, and there's so that you guys can be my safeguard for if that happens.
Yeah. Well, and it's also interesting because you see Dalinar accept the possibility that he might be going crazy. And that's why he talks about, I'm going to step down, because if I can't trust myself to know what's real, like that's, with all that's going on, that's not good. But you see Adolin sort of being like, whoa. This isn't what I wanted.
You weren't supposed to do that.
Yeah. Like that's, and you see them And Dalinar has that line somewhere, something to the effect of, he's so much he's so like me that he knows, we know where to push each other where it hurts. And it's Renarin who's the one that's like, well, can we prove whether or not these things happened?
He's like, let's do some empirical evidence here.
Yeah. And then they're like, well, that's a good idea. We should do that.
Yeah. And I think in that same section, Dalinar kind of has a thought where he's like, man, if only Renarin would just become an Ardent, then it would work out so well. So he can even recognize in Renarin that he's got that scholarly penchant for things.
Well, he's in a tough position because he's not just some light eyes. He's a high prince's son. There's a lot of expectations on him.
I love the relationship between Adolin and Renarin.
I know.
It could so easily be the, not rivalry, but you could have Adolin. You could have Adolin being annoyed by Renarin. You could have Renarin being jealous of Adolin, but instead, it's just no. These are brothers in every sense of the word.
Yeah, and Adolin's protective of Renarin, and Renarin's protective of Adolin, and they're just so cute with each other.
Well, and in the later books, you even see them learning from each other. Like Adolin watching Renarin train, as
his shard plate.
Yeah, where he's just the guy's telling him, he's like, go over, fall off of that ledge head first.
Just do it.
Renarin just does, and Adolin sees this, he's like, wow,
you're so willing. Just do it. So pliant. And
I love that they both see the value in each other rather than being like, ugh, why couldn't you be more like X? It's just, I never thought of it that way. That is fascinating. I love their relationship.
Well, and it offers up such a good counterpoint to, but in different ways, Yesna and Elokar, because Elokar feels so inadequate compared to his sister, and then Gavilar and
and that's what I was going to say. It's Gavilar and Dalinar.
Well, because Gavilar and Dalinar do actually have a good relationship between the two of them. They're very Dalinar in particular is very supportive of Gavilar, but everything changes when and we didn't know to the extent of it when Dalinar had that moment where he was taken up in the thrill and he was considering killing Gavilar so that he could get Navani. And then he suddenly came to and he's like, oh my goodness, I'm thinking of killing my brother. And Gavilar plays it off and Dalinar's like, oh, thank goodness he didn't notice. But then we get a Gavilar perspective and Gavilar is sort of like, he saw it in his eyes and it terrified him. And ever since that, he's like, okay, keep him drunk. Just
Which is fascinating because that's the exact same moment where Dalinar says, I am loyal to my brother to the end.
Yeah.
Very different takes on it. And I, from having only the one perspective seen with Gavilar, and I hope we don't get any more because I don't like him.
I don't think we'll be getting much more.
Oh, I know. But I worry because I just want to punch him in the face. But I wonder how much condescension and how manipulative he feels about Dalinar as a brother, compared to Adolin and Renarin's relationship, where they are supportive of each other the whole way, and then you have Gavilar, who's totally a narcissist.
There is absolute disdain for him. You see it. Yeah.
Well, I think part of it's because if you look at it, it's sort of the opposite of who's the older brother, because the smart one is the younger brother for Adolin and Renarin, but the smart one's the older one for Gavilar. And I think part of it is when he thought he just had this dumb, and useful younger brother, everything was fine until suddenly it's something dangerous. And he suddenly realizes, no, this guy could take everything from me, including my life. And I think it's just the difference of one is a healthy relationship where they respect each other's strengths and play off of it. And the other, it's an unhealthy relationship where it looks fine, until you start scratching beneath the surface and you see there's not the shared respect the way it should be.
And I think that says a lot about Evie and who she was.
Yeah.
Because they didn't learn, I mean, they learned some of that from Dalinar, because first off, they saw the way that Dalinar and Gavilar related to each other. And also, Dalinar, like later on, Dalinar was, he encouraged his sons, but Evie was definitely the presence in their life.
Oh yeah, and I mean, Dalinar was not physically present for big chunks of their childhood too.
Well,
and when he was physically present, he wasn't always mentally present.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, and that's the one thing got to remember as well when we're talking about the Gavilar-Dalinar relationship is it's not like Dalinar was a pillar of morality either. Like, he was actually a very bad person and a very bad father for most of their life. And then he started getting himself straightened out, but he neither one of them was had a very healthy relationship
with their kids or with each other.
Both.
Yeah.
I mean, you'll notice instead of confronting the issue, what does Dalinar do? He starts burying himself in his wine so that he won't ever have to confront those feelings again. And he has a frankly fairly loveless relationship with Evie. He's a very distant father to the point he views Renarin as, he refers to him as the other one.
The other one, and it's like,
yeah, until
he brings him some wine.
Yeah, and he's and then he has that moment where he's like, "Oh my goodness, I hate my own sons," and that's when he resolves he's gonna.
It's not just I hate my own sons. In spite of that, my sons love me.
Yeah,
and
so he needed a fairly big kick in the butt, and
there is something so pure about that scene where Renarin brings him the wine, and it actually I never made the comparison, but there's a parallel between that and Syl bringing the leaf to
Blackbane leaf,
Kaladin, the Blackbane.
There's also
they brought them poison.
You know what? And it's also it's Gavilar in him, because Gavilar was making sure he found the wine.
Yeah, he's keeping him drunk.
And it's the, like, you look at these things and why do these things feel different? It's because they come from one comes from this place of fear, and the other two come from a place of love, but naivete. Whereas Gavilar knows what he's doing.
Yeah,
but it's just really interesting having Renarin bring Dalinar the toxic thing, and Kaladin having Syl bring him the literal poison, and that being their turning point. Because that was the moment that Kaladin was going to step off the edge. And that was the moment where Dalinar was absolutely broken. But the purity of the act of this naive person who's just doing something because they want to help.
Yeah.
So something else I forgot on a much less heavy note. I forgot how much I enjoyed Navani flirting with Dalinar.
Oh my goodness, I loved it. It was so great.
Oh, it's wonderful.
Yeah, there's so many moments where I'm like, oh, just give in, dude.
He doesn't flinch in front of a great shell, but Navani, he's like,
he's like, oh no, I gotta just keep shoving food in my mouth because she can't come here if I'm eating. And then he's like, oh crap, I finished eating. Oh no, she's over here now.
Well, and Navani is
himself.
But she's having so much fun.
Well, the thing is, she has become because at this point she's not the queen; she's the queen mother, and the queen mother, in a lot of different stories, always has this very interesting place where they don't have to care what anybody thinks anymore.
Yep.
And so because she's the king's mother, she doesn't have the responsibility. She could just say, go in, act crazy, and just be like, deal with it.
What are you gonna do? It's like, yeah, what are you gonna do?
She has the freedom to not care. And so she comes in and she starts flirting with Dalinar, and she's just like, How are you going to respond?
She's like,
Your
I want you.
move.
Let's make this happen. Let's do this. Yeah, I did enjoy her scene also where she kind of breaks down in front of Dalinar and is like, what am I supposed to do? Like, no one will talk to me. No one will. I'm just a thing that's kind of shoved over to the side. And she's like, so I'm doing what I want to do because otherwise I'm just a little thing put on the shelf.
Especially when you then later read her prologue.
Oh,
her perspective of the prologue, and you realize what her relationship with Gavilar was actually like, because so many, you think it's, this is Navani in mourning, but trying to move forward. And it's just like, oh no, this is Navani who prayed for him to die. And then he died. And just trying to figure out how to live with herself at this point.
Well, and also on top of that, knowing what she talks about, I think it's an Oathbringer, where she talks about how, like, do you know why I chose Gavilar over you? And she like basically because he was so wild, like just like there was something.
Well, I thought she mentioned it in this one.
Dalinar scared her.
Yeah. Was it this one? Okay. At this point, it's all. Yeah,
it blurs.
Dalinar scared her, and it's like that version of Dalinar
would be scary.
Yeah, I mean, he was the storming Blackthorn. He was a thing that you unleashed on other countries,
and I had forgotten
before he had Shardplate.
Yeah, and I had forgotten that they had met before, and then she gets introduced. He introduced her to Gavilar. And then they had the conversation about, like, she's like, I didn't realize you were giving me. She's like, I'm not a thing. You didn't just give me to him, But that was how Gavilar understood it.
Right.
That's how Dalinar understood it too.
Yeah.
Well, because again, everything was for his brother. His brother was the older one. His brother was the smart one. His brother was.
He was also he was scared of what he would do with it. He was terrified of power.
Well, the Blackthorn didn't deserve Navani, but Dalinar, like, they were such a good match at this point. After the journey that both of them have gone on, they come together and it's just like, okay, this is the power couple.
Yes.
I mean, there's a reason they get held up as sort of a role model relationship.
They communicate so well once they finally start communicating and compliment each other and everything. So.
Imagine that.
Yeah, I know. Communication. It does good things.
Once Dalinar gets past the whole, this is taboo.
Yeah.
And like, Navani says, I don't care.
She's like, really? This is what you're hung up on? Yeah.
Well, and the thing that really starts changing it is when and we see it here, is when he finally brings her into confidence on the visions. I think
Bill,
part of it's because he makes him think that she is the one I can trust her.
Yeah. So Bill, you had mentioned, shoot, now my brain's forgetting. No, what was it? Oh, that it looked like Navani was just in mourning and she did love Gavilar and everything. This time around, I caught more hints that she is playing up the, yep, I loved him. He was a wonderful man, except that she's like, not really. No.
Yep.
There's more hints of her biting her tongue kind of about it and being like, I was in a relationship with him, but I'm not, and she's like, I'm here now and moving on and everything.
Yeah. I chose him and I regretted that decision.
Yeah. So.
No, it's just really interesting, like, thinking of all the different characters who had powerful relationships with Gavilar, and it's just like, how would they respond knowing who he was?
Yeah.
So.
Well, and that's the interesting thing is she told him, like, I'm gonna bury you in the undertext, and then
instead, she praised him
because all that guilt.
Not just the guilt.
It wasn't just guilt though,
but
it was what Alethkar needed.
Yeah,
it's what Alethkar needed too. Like, that would have been the worst thing to do. Like it'd be a guaranteed death sentence for her kids. Which is the problem when politics gets brought into it. Is suddenly you have to make a lot of compromises in order to make sure everything stays the way it should.
Navani wasn't the hero that Alethkar needed or deserved. She was the one it needed at the time.
Well, and if you go to it, that's part of Dalinar's concerns. At the end of the book, he tells as he's making the offer of Kaladin to make bridge for his honor guard. He's like, if it goes to this, there'll be a war, and it'll be a war that has been unlike anything else because we have all these shards and
we're all right here and all this concentrated power
and so he needs people he can trust, and it's him understanding that because of that, I'm going to trust a Dark Eyes who's got a slave brand because you're all I got.
Well, Kaladin also makes some pretty big points that he's like, I need to be outside the command structure. He's like, if you're worried about spies, you can't have me have to listen to Light Eyes. He's like, it's just not going to work that way.
Yeah. Well, and you see Dalinar trying to make the decision is he's like, okay, I'll do this. I dare not put you higher than that. Oh, geez.
He's like, because otherwise that's going to blow up. Oh, yeah.
And it's just them trying to figure out, okay, how are we going to do this?
Because this is different. Yeah.
And it's just they have to play around these problems. And so they're all making these compromises here and there. Well, heck, another one is Yesna. She allies with the girl who stole from her.
I did there's a line when Shallan comes back to her and is like, all right, lays out all the stuff she's figured out. She's like, you soul cast without the stuff and all these other things, and Yasta actually makes like a Pikachu face. Like the shocked face.
Yes, it was a decoy.
And Shallan like takes a mental image of it. She's like, she just couldn't resist. She's like, I just have to draw that later because you don't see that on Yesna's face.
No, well, the line I remember is when right after Capsule does his cymatics. Is that the right word?
Yes,
I can't remember.
I think cymatics with the sand. Yeah.
And she shows up and she's like, can you do more than just the 4? Blah, blah, blah. And she gets him to go away. She's like, that was kind of rude of you. And he's like, that's what he expects. So I'm going to give him what he expects. And she's, has he asked to steal my soulcaster yet? She's like, no, steal the soulcaster.
No,
what
perish the thought. Who would ever do such a thing?
He will. And it's like, he's interested in me, not you. And it's like, that's a bit arrogant. And her response is something to the effect, only if I'm wrong, and I usually am not.
It's usually I'm right. So yeah.
It's not arrogance if you're right. If it's
you're
true.
Right, yeah.
Speaking of arrogance, I love I forget what the movement was, because she had Shallan reading these books and they have to overstate their claim. And she's like, it's not ignorance, it's arrogance. And normally, so basically, whenever Capsule and Shallan are together, I want both of them to just sort of fall over and die. I hate their chemistry so much because it's two people who think they're too smart. But when Shallan's with Yesna, because Yesna plays the straight man, I like Shallan's wordplay a lot more because she's trying a little harder and not just giving the first thing she comes up with.
Well, which is what Yesna tells her. Like she specifically says, don't just say the first witty thing that comes to mind.
Yeah, and I love Shallan and Yesna because I really Shallan does a good job of, like, there's actually some of these lines where you see Yesna like smirk or something, and you're just like, see, the Tin Man does have a heart. And Shallan's good at getting those reactions out.
Yeah.
I still liked the Capsule and Shallan together, but even though I knew he was going to betray her and wasn't really interested, because I like
You're
the
squishy.
I like the squishy scenes, even if I'm like, dude, do you have to? Yeah, you're going to do the bad thing. I know you are, but you're so cute together, even if it really isn't a very good relationship, but it's still cute in the moment.
Let me ask this. Do you think he legitimately cared about her?
I think to a small
knowing
degree,
everything we know.
I think he may have had an inkling of, she's kind of cute. She's kind of fun to banter with. But I don't know that he went too much deeper than that.
At the very minimum, he did try and get her the antidote.
He did.
Well, he tried to get himself the antidote first.
Well, no, he gave her the jam first.
Okay.
And then he kept being like, you need to eat the jam, you need to eat the jam, he kept pushing and pushing, and she's like, what? And he's like, because he's sitting there going, I want you to take the antidote, and then I need it. He's like, but I want you to take it.
She's like,
part of that though is if Shallan dies, his cover's blown.
That's true.
Yeah, and that's you could read it multiple ways.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean,
so it's I don't know, it's an interesting question. I don't think he was in love with her. I think he may have a little bit liked her.
I'm a little bit more cynical about it.
I like the cutesy squishy, so
I know you're squishy. It's okay.
No,
that's not a criticism. That's just
Also, I'm not squishy. I think he did. I think he at the very minimum had a fondness for her.
Yeah,
because he liked the banter. He seemed to like the banter with her. You know?
I don't think it was all a lie.
Oh no, I don't think it was she was just an obstacle, but I think his affection for her was very limited.
No, the other thing, and I guess I hadn't really thought about it too much. I love Shallan asking, like, wait a minute, you soul cast all my blood. And and it's like, that blood is easy. And it's like, easier than jam? It's like, well, yeah, blood's one of the essences. Meanwhile, jam is actually really complicated.
Well, also, she doesn't like jam.
She doesn't like jam, so she would, and plus it's a strawberry jam. She's never had strawberries. No, jam is a little bit complicated. Having made jam, it can be complicated.
Yeah, well, I mean, but technically, it's literally a complex sugar.
I mean, but like, honestly, it's just
that was a smart joke. Everyone knows that was a good, smart joke.
I closed my eyes and just stared for a second. So yeah, it's fine. Sorry, Bill. I talked over you.
I got a chemistry joke in there. I am proud of me right now. I'm going to take a satisfied sip.
You go for it.
I'm going to miss the straw.
You're doing great.
I'm really not. Jordan, weren't you just criticizing Shallan for being too clever? Yes. It's called hypocrisy. We just read in a whole book where that's what Dalinar's worried about. Come on, people.
Jeez.
Oh, man.
Oh, all the wit scenes are really fun, too, just seeing him play off of people.
I love the way that he works with Renarin. And I love the fact that he calls Dalinar out, and he's just like, he's stronger than you think.
Yeah, I love the witless joke.
Uh-huh.
That one's
fun. The nothing foolish.
Yeah. Oh, is that what it was? The nothing foolish is that he's like, well,
can you speak and say nothing foolish?
And then Renarin just kind of stares at him for a minute. He's like, nothing foolish. It's kind of like, is it really that's all it is?
It takes Wit off guard. Like, I don't know that Wit was that was a thing that Wit had set up. It's just he was like,
it's when the class, it's when the class clown is, he's so used to doing things, and then the quiet kid says something that lets the class clown know he has a secret friend. And it's like, ooh, I didn't know you had this gear. Oh, this is fun. Isn't this fun? This is fun.
But I love that of all the people, Wit is the one who calls Dalinar out and says, you're coddling Renarin, and by doing so, you're stunting him.
Yeah, you gotta
can do more.
Which I think is also, I think that leads into the conversation where Dalinar agrees to get Renarin a set of plate and things.
That was when they were coming back from the hunt.
Oh, okay.
Because
I feel like that happened. Yeah,
because Renarin wanted to help and he wasn't able to. Yeah.
Yeah, he went out without anything, and it's like,
and he's just like, I'm sorry, I'm so, I have my fits and all this stuff, and Dalinar's just like, we'll get you some plate so that
so
you can actually move, because anyone can move with shard plate.
That was another good Dalinar Renarin moment, although it wasn't really between them. It was when Dalinar was coming out of one of his trances and seeing how his sons looked at him.
Mm-hmm.
And then shortly after, Renarin's having like a little minor fit, and he can tell. And he suddenly realizes, he's like, is this how it feels to be him? Like, where he suddenly understands that emotion. It's like, ooh, okay, I like the layer on this one. This is good.
Is this the way it feels to be looked at with concern?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And especially if you're able-bodied, or, that would hurt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, then the
Dalinar
other thing
is used to being very fit, so.
Yeah. I'm the most. Short of like Taln, I don't know if we've seen a Cosmere a better fighter. It's like
beefy fighter at that.
He freaking last claps a shard blade as an old man.
Well, you say Taln, well, and basically any of the heralds, because we also see a Shar and Zeth, but yeah,
he was able to last clap Zeth when Zeth was full of Stormlight, and he had nothing.
Yes, he was.
Yeah.
I know it's not this book. I just love it, that scene. It's both Kaladin and Adolin just both going, oh my! Like, both of them are just in awe, because both of them are really good soldiers.
Yep.
Yeah.
There's that, and then there's the moment in Thalena when he just walks up the prince's blade, and he's just sort of like, basically just he's like, your sword is in me and I'm not going down, bring it on,
And then there's Liv's assessment with this tight butt.
Someone that old should not have that tight a butt.
But no, that's wrong.
All right, well, we should probably start wrapping up. So anything else you'll want to get to before we...
Something we didn't really get to talk about, but after doing this, I'm fairly confident we could do an entire episode. Axes.
Oh man,
Axes the Collector. There's just so much we don't know about the I'm blanking on what they're called.
Sia Amiens.
Amiens, yeah.
The not sleepless.
Yeah, not the Dissians, the C. I think it's Cian.
I think it's Saya.
Something with an S.
Yeah.
Yeah, the blue ones, the Smurfs. The Smurf avians.
The descendants of Misham, or of Noman.
Noman. Yeah, like I caught so many more references to moons now that we've reread Misham, and I was like, oh my goodness, it's the moons. They're being referenced all the time. And I'm like, wow, I see them now all over the place. So it's
you see it's like they talk about Misham's rising. I'm like, oh, that's my friend.
Oh, I know that. Okay. So
the other thing I caught this time that I don't know why it just didn't click was with the Sias was the fact that they seem to have a lot of abilities that remind me of Feruchemists.
What do you mean?
So he makes this pain go away, which is very similar to Gold Feruchemy. He's able to turn off his sense of smell because he was in the gutter, which is very similar to Tin Feruchemy. And it was just sort of like, that's interesting. Now, tattoos all over their body, I don't know what to do with that. And the shadow the wrong way is even more confusing.
Yeah, the shadow's weird. We haven't had an explanation for that.
The shadow going the wrong way makes me think of the cognitive realm.
Yeah, and they have something going on there because he mentioned something like it's not his true form or something, or I don't know. There's something weird going on with the Amiens of all kinds, and I don't think we're getting answers anytime soon.
Yeah, it's probably gonna be a while.
Oh boy. Yeah, there's just so.
I also towards the last little section of the book, I understood why they didn't do it, but I was more bothered by not getting any Shallan viewpoints, just because it's such a big gap where you don't get anything with Shallan, and she's left like right before she's about to be booted out, and then it jumps after the tower and all these other things, and then it's back to Shallan again, and it's like, I feel like so much time has passed, except for her, it's the next day.
Well, and that's the thing, is it's not entirely sequential.
Yeah. So it kind of, I mean, I don't know that there was a better way to do it with pacing, but it still was a little frustrating.
Well, and it's in this book, she's the one with the least stakes of what's going on.
Yeah.
But the more gets made up for in the next book, where not only is she the viewpoint chapters, she's the flashback chapters, and
she makes some big changes in her life.
Yeah, and everyone else's life. She, in the end, her job is the most important. She's the one who finds Urithiru. She actually proves to be a very worthy student of Yesna, because she's the one who completes her work.
Yep.
And I don't know how much higher a compliment you can pay a student than you completed my research.
Right.
Yeah.
The one thing I do want to just talk about briefly is Non-Balat. Rereading his interlude, that boy's going to be a Dustbringer. Like, he is 100% on the way to being a Dustbringer, I think.
It's trippy. It, like,
I used to think that.
But yeah,
I still do.
All I know is it's the first time I've seen, normally when you show someone who likes to harm small animals, it's almost always in very negative terms. This is the first time I've ever read, like, and again, I think it's very similar to Zeth, where you see his descent into madness. I remember it became a series on Netflix, but I read a book called Mindhunters. And the actual book, it covers like the FBI developing their forensic division, where they try and profile people psychologically. And these, people who are serial killers and stuff, they don't think logically. But one of the things they really hammer home is, what does this behavior get them? They aren't doing, this isn't some random thing. They're doing it for some reason. And something you see with him is the whole thing where, he's still in pain from the injuries from his father. And there's something about this that relaxes him. And even he's like, this isn't like the greatest thing in the world, but he just like he needs it to relax.
He doesn't know what else to do.
The other thing is that Brandon has said that what's happening with Non-Balat is magically enhanced. So there is a magic aspect to that. Yeah. I just pulled up the word of Brandon. Someone says, there's a scene where you can see from the perspective of Non-Balat, Shallan's brother, where he's maiming an insect. It's described as soothing his aches. Is that in any way related to how Kaladin feels depressed and down during the weeping, even in his early childhood? Brandon's response, he says, what's happening to Non-Balat is magically enhanced. What's happening to Kaladin is mostly just chemical depression, but he's really too young to be diagnosed with depression during some of these events, but he's got the seeds in there. So Kaladin's not magically depressed. Kaladin is just legitimately a person with depression. Non-Balat, what's up with him is being exaggerated by certain forces moving in on Roshar. The last bit was a bit indistinctive, it says.
So that sounds like an unmade affecting him to me. That's my guess. I don't know which one it would be, but that's my inclination, is there's an unmade that is having that influence on him.
I would say either that or potentially, again, sort of a proto Dustbringer or something.
I could see that too.
Because what he's doing is he's looking into the details, seeing how it works, and again, it's a very Siler's type thing.
Yeah, from Heroes. If anybody doesn't know who Siler
from
is.
Heroes, yes.
Yeah.
I've already said external media. I think Siler is the epitome of a Dustbringer, in a negative sense.
Yeah,
but he is kind of an example of a Dustbringer, a creepy Dustbringer. But I think Non-Balat has potential to become a positive one. And that's the other thing is Shallan's family, each of the individuals is so broken in such a way that each of them is kind of prepped to be a Radiant, to form a Spren bond.
We know Halaran was with Nails.
He was with
he was
the Skybreakers.
Breakers, so, but we don't know if he was a full Sky. He wasn't. We don't know that he was.
I think he might have been a novice, but I'm not positive.
Okay.
I can't say that for certain because he also had blade and plate. So I guess he wouldn't have been because he would be holding a dead blade.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's one of those things that her story, like her backstory, is so much more interesting going into book 5. Like I found her constantly talking about her family before book 4. I'm just sort of like, I just had a hard time getting into it. But with all the stuff that we think we figured out, the intrigue around her family has become a lot more interesting, and I'm going over it with a more of a fine-tooth comb because I feel like I know what I'm trying to look for. That I did before. It's like everything sort of felt frivolous before, but now I feel like it might not be as frivolous. I think
little things matter a lot more.
Yeah. No, I've seen, ever since that I've been diving into whole theories about the Devar family, and one of my favorites is some people think her mother may have been guarding the Ba-Auto Mishram
interesting
where they've still
holding it.
The theory being that's what's in the mines, like she's hidden it there, she was guarding it, and there was a bunch of evidence people were pointing to that like this might be it, and I'm just like making her needing to get back to her family estate very important. But it's being controlled by the
Ghostbloods now.
Yeah.
No. The diagram, wouldn't it?
I thought the diagram got out. I thought the diagram was just Carbranth that got saved.
No, because he's also the king of Yakaved at this point, isn't he?
Yeah.
Yes.
And her family estates are in Yakaved.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah, but I thought his deal with Odium. I go though at this point.
He is Odium.
Who knows now?
What's going on. But yeah, he said, "Protect my people," which I thought was Carbranth, but he also was the king of.
It was originally Carbranth. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway,
it's all weird.
It got very complicated what that deal was.
Indeed. Well, especially because now the deal's with himself.
Yes, but we've shown that they have to obey.
Honor them to a degree, yeah.
Yeah. Well, and Odium talks about how no, I will honor the spirit, not the letter. Like like I'm not going to try and be. Well, he didn't use the word, but like a genie that is trying to rules lawyer you.
Mm-hmm. He's not granting the monkey's paw wishes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like if this is a deal, it's a deal.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh boy.
Anyway.
Yep. So much in it, and there's so much more we could talk about in this, and we may come back to this before we get to Words of Radiance, or we may not. Who knows? But because this year is going to be nuts.
There's a lot.
Yeah. Anyway, we love hearing from our listeners, so please keep sending in questions. You can ask us about the Cosmere. You can drop us your ideas for topics you'd like us to discuss during the show. And while you're at it, we would love to hear your feedback about how you think we're doing, as well as any interesting theories you might have about what's going on in the Cosmere. You can send all questions and suggestions in a brief, concise email to cosmerestudies@gmail.com, and we could read it as part of the show. Now is a particularly good time because we are... we're kind of clear on emails that we need to answer. If you have sent us one that we never responded to, then it's probably gotten lost in the shuffle. Feel free to send it in again. We will follow our discretion on what emails we can answer, but we'd love hearing from you, and hopefully we can talk about it. We'd love to. You can also reach us at the Sandersonian Institute of Cosmere Studies, P.O. Box 970063, Orem, Utah 84097. We've got our own personal projects outside of the podcast. So, Amy, why don't you start us off and let us know what you got going on?
So my Facebook is Coincidence Cosplay and Props. My Twitter is @CoincidenceCosp because my name is too long. Instagram is @Coincidence_Cosplay. TikTok is at Coincidence Cosplay, and my website is www.coincidencecosplay.com. I've been updating my website slowly, so it's getting nicer-ish all the time. So, and there's more like on my cosplay gallery page. Some of them have actual links to separate pages, so you can go and see more details. Some of them kind of like, I made a thing or I bought a thing and here it is. But others, I have pseudo tutorials or tutorials kind of slowly going up about different stuff.
Cool.
Right now, I am working on a Mud Trooper. So the troopers from Solo, the Star Wars movie. And I'm also trying to catch up on other things anyway, but I'm making the fabric parts for a group of 3 of us, and they're going to do the armor. So you'll probably, if I actually am going to post, hopefully, and you will see me doing more stuff with that maybe. And I'm also going to try and post stuff that I have not posted before, but I'm just kind of doing that right now as Mud Trooper. So
cool. Jordan, how about you?
You can find me on Kick, Twitch, YouTube under the name Splice Stream. I recently just had my 10-year anniversary of streaming, which was a lot of fun. We tried something new that people really seem to enjoy, so we might make it a more regular segment. Video game 20 questions, which has been interesting. It's just 20 questions, but everything is going to be associated with video games in some way. Could be a game, could be a character, could be a genre, could be Nintendo Power Magazine.
Could be a catchphrase.
Could be a motto, a catchphrase. It's all over the place. I've been quite pleased with the results. People tend to get it, even on some of the more obscure ones. I've been kind of impressed. So right now, the plan is to do that on Tuesdays. So, we just got done with that today, actually. So if you would like to try your hand at Video Game 20 Questions, or at least just come and play along, I've really been enjoying doing it, and so I hope you'll come by and enjoy it with us.
And then for myself, I've got another podcast. My friend Dylan and I talk about board games. It's called The Innkeeper's Table, and we post new episodes every other Friday. Our most recent episode was our top 3 Dudes on a Map games. For if you're curious what Dudes on a Map is, probably the easiest example is Risk. Games where you have a mask, you've got a lot of dudes, and you take those dudes and you take them and you try and take over this part of the map. So Dudes on a Map is actually the popular name of the genre.
Fitting. It works.
So we talked about our top 3, and this was actually a really cool one because we talked about some great games. It's one of my favorite types of games. So I've also been working with the smoker in the backyard, of course. Jordan, I think, will be happy to hear I picked up some crab legs this morning at the grocery store, and I'm going to put those on the smoker tomorrow.
Oh, I was wondering if we were doing the depth charge.
No, we're not. No, we're not doing the depth charge. That's something else entirely. We're not ready for that. The world isn't ready for that.
Can we tell them about the depth charge?
You want to tell them what the depth charge is?
So Bill comes into my room and he's like, so I've discovered a recipe that I want to try. It's crab stuffed shrimp, to which Bill's like, I could wrap bacon around it. And then we started coming up with names for it. So
no, wait, you said I could wrap bacon around it, and you said, and we call it the depth charge.
Yeah, well, no, so we then changed it because you came up with the idea of depth charge is just the crab stuffed shrimp, and then the bacon is the terror from the deep.
No. Wrapping in bacon and then deep frying it.
Oh, that's right. That was
terror
the deep frying.
That was terror from the deep.
That's what it was.
No. Wrapping it in calamari, then deep frying.
Yes, that's right.
Bacon, then calamari.
We got calamari involved. I forgot we got calamari involved.
That makes more sense with the from the deep part.
And so it was the terror from the deep, because it's calamari and crab and shrimp deep fried.
All I know is I want some.
But yeah. So I'll be doing
not me having something in my eye.
It's such a beautiful thought.
It's so moving.
But no, so I like I said, I got some crab legs, and those are going to go on the smoker tomorrow. So
I am excited.
I am excited too. For those of you who want to support the Sandersonian Institute of Cosmere Studies, but you can't become patrons, we'd love it if you just let your friends know about the show. Even that helps. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast, to like and subscribe over on youtube.com/Cosmere Studies. And if you want to toss us a good review wherever you listen to us, we'd appreciate that too. Feel free to chime in the comments with feedback, questions, all that other stuff as well. And you can head over to store.streamelements.com/Cosmere Studies to buy our merch. All right, guys, final thoughts.
There's so much depth to the depths.
Charge.
This is another example of the books get better the more that gets placed on top of it, which is pretty, like, I thought that about Mistborn, and I find myself, even with what I originally thought was one of his weaker books, Way of Kings, it gets better upon rereads, and I can't wait to see what it looks like after book 5.
Yep, I love returning to early Roshar because it's such a more intimate with individual characters. Like, because you have the lower, rather than world-ending stakes, it's kingdom-ending stakes. You also deal with the smaller characters and people and just get to know them. And I love that. The world building is just, Brandon, wow.
Yeah, it's getting me really excited for book 5 and seeing Szeth.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. Well, in addition to the live episodes of the show that stream on youtube.com/Cosmere Studies every 2 weeks on Monday nights at 7:30 p.m. Pacific Time, 10:30 p.m. Eastern, listeners can find our videos on YouTube or audio versions of the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and just about any other service that carries podcasts by searching for Cosmere Studies. You can also follow us on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook under the profile @Cosmere Studies. For our next episode, we have got a special treat. We're going to be chatting with Roger, a longtime friend of the podcast, and a medical doctor who actually specializes in trauma and emergency surgery. So I think we're going to be talking about a lot of the medical talk that shows up across the Stormlight Archive, with medical experts like Liren and Kaladin being so prominent, and field medicine and all this emergency stuff. I'm really looking forward to this one. So make sure to join us for the first discussion in that series when we... I'm reading something from previous. Anyway, make sure to join us for that amazing discussion because I'm really excited about it. And when we stream it live in 2 weeks on Monday, February 26th, 2024 at 7:30 p.m. Pacific Time, 10:30 p.m. Eastern at www.youtube.com/Cosmere Studies. Sorry, Roger, I'm not trying to sign you up for a series of repeatedly coming on the show.
Welcome to our pyramid scheme of podcasts.
But until then, on behalf of Amy, Jordan, and myself, thanks for listening. And remember, there's always another secret.